Hello. Okay, now it's coming through. All right, this is Kellyanne with Church Windows. We're going to go ahead and get started with today's webinar. Today is a sneak peek at version 22, and that's what you should see on your screen right now. You can see in the upper right-hand corner, it says version 22.19.0. This is not out yet. The programmers are working on the beta testing, and hopefully end of summer, beginning of fall, we will be releasing version 22. But we want to show you a little preview of what's to come. Now, if other techs do a version 22 sneak peek preview, they might show you different things than I do. They might think other things are cooler or more important. I work on the workbooks, editing those from what Kay had done before she retired. So I've been working on those for the past month and have been seeing some of the changes. So let me go ahead and show you some of those. If this is your first time attending a GoToWebinar webinar, you do have a toolbar, and on that toolbar there's a little arrow to the side. If you click on that, it will minimize it down so it's not blocking what I'm showing you on screen. And then you can just click on that again to open it back up if you need to ask a question. I won't be unmuting people, but Rachel is in the room with me today, and if you have a question as I'm working through showing you what I want to show you, you can type that in and she'll answer that personally for you. Might want to wait till the end and ask your question then, because then I'll read it out loud and just answer it for the whole group. So let's go. Without further ado, let's look at version 22. Now, most of the big changes are in, hi, Mary Lou Turnbull. I just happened to look over at questions, and one of our former technicians, Mary Lou Turnbull, who now owns Steeple Accounting, she's in the room watching. Cool. Hi. Most of the big changes occurred in, are occurring in membership and reporting. There's some neat things you can do now with reporting. A little bit in donations. So what I'm going to show you today is really concerns membership and donations. A lot of our webinars, we usually have workbook pages you can follow along with. There's no workbook for this because this is a sneak peek at a variety of different things in version 22. All right, so without further rambling and ado, let's look at, I'm going to go ahead, go down here. I have membership open, so I'll just click to open membership there. And let me show you, this is a little thing in people. If I go ahead and click on people in the shortcuts, that opens up my records. Now, when somebody passes away or leaves the church or transfers out, there's a little field on the record called inactive. And if you click on that field, get my highlighter, inactive, right here. When you mark someone inactive, that kind of hides them from searches unless you specifically ask for inactive people, and it's a way just to keep records but not have people who've left the church show up on all your different reports unless you're trying to get those people on the reports. A new feature is when you mark someone inactive, if you notice I circled inactive and then lower left I circled where you can see, it says we're showing active, inactive. Let me get my regular clicking tool back. Up here at the top at the person lookup, if I click the little drop down, you'll see people in kind of red, a dark red color here, Jen Arnold, Richard Arnold. That indicates an inactive person. Right now I'm showing my active and inactive people as I go through my records. If you prefer not to see those inactive persons, then right here at the top, just to the left of the person lookup, I can uncheck Show Inactive. Watch what happens lower left when I do this. Ta-da! It shows me now in the lower left, I am only looking at active records. So if I were to go through and look at each, I would only see active records. Ones that are not marked inactive doesn't mean status code. But now if I click the drop-down list as well, I don't see any red. None of my inactive people are showing. So if you prefer not to see inactive families, then you can uncheck Show Inactive, and those people will not show in the person lookup. They won't show in the searches. As you scroll through, you're not going to see inactive families. Now, I'm not sure. I did not test if there's one person marked inactive in a family and one is not. I think you'd still see the family, and it wouldn't remove the inactive person from that family because you're still looking at the record. But they're not going to show in this person lookup. And if the entire family is marked inactive, then you're not going to see them. Now to see those people again, I can just check show inactive. And now lower left, we see it's telling us we are showing all our active and our inactive records both. And then if I click the little drop down, we can see those records in red again. All right, so I'm going to be kind of speeding through this because there's a lot I want to show you in 20 minutes, and I tend to talk a lot. All right, so the next thing makes adding families a little easier. If you're brand new to the program and you've never added a family, then this may not make sense to you. But in versions prior to 22, when you click Add Family, let me show you up here real quick. I gotta remember where the button is. I thought there was another button for it. It's right here. If you are trying to add a new family, normally the first thing that would happen when you click Add Family is a little window like this. Maintain Family Category Codes would come up, and you'd highlight what you needed and click Add. There would be an Add button along the bottom. So it's similar to the same window as when you're making new category codes. That confused a lot of people. They thought they needed to make codes, and people were making all kinds of different codes, category codes, when all they needed to do was select that category they needed and move on to adding the family. Now in 22, what happens when you click Add Family? You don't get that maintain screen with the selection or the ability to add. You actually get a single window saying select a category for the new family. You can choose from your existing categories and click OK. Or if you need to make one, you can then here in the lower left click Add Family Categories, and that would bring up a window where you can make more. So I think that will help eliminate a lot of confusion when adding new families and people ending up making all these different category codes that they didn't need because all they needed to do there was select the one they wanted. All right, so those are the big things I noticed, or I'm remembering. I've been working on the books for the past month, and I should have kept the list as I was going, but I made it last week. All right, the big change I want to show you is in reports. Now this, at first, I know people are going to be like, oh, why'd you change it? It's confusing. Once you see what it can do, I think you're going to like it. And it really has not changed reporting much at all. You still have the same screens. You just can do more now. So if I click on reports, the first screen that's going to come up is still called Step 1, select who should appear on the report. And you still have here your accounts and sort at the top. Excuse me, but it doesn't open right to that criteria screen. What you do is you click on Edit People Selection Criteria, and then you can put your criteria in. So maybe I want a status of active. Excuse me. So I can add that to my selection. I can add any of the criteria I need like I normally did on that first screen that would come up for reports. And then click OK here, and that adds my people selection criteria. Can do an and or an or if I'm adding giving and pledging. If that's all you need, then you can click next. You don't have to do anything with step 3. Let me sip on my coffee real quick. Okay. However, if you would like to add giving and pledging criteria, what this new report builder or query builder lets you do, you can add more than one giving pledging selection. Before, giving pledging was one tab where you could make a selection for your giving pledging criteria. You couldn't build different things. But sometimes churches want to see maybe who last year gave and pledged, and this year they gave and didn't pledge. We can do that now. If I go add giving pledging criteria, I'm going to change my year back to 2018, and I'm going to say only those who gave, only those who pledged, and click add. And then I'm going to do an and now I can add another giving pledging line of criteria. So I can say, click on add giving pledging, and now I'm going to say in 2019 they gave and they did not pledge. So we're trying to find out those people who pledged last year and gave, but this year they haven't. Get pledges from them maybe. Maybe send a letter saying, hey, we see you're giving. Why not go ahead and pledge? So click add there, and here we now are able to add more than one giving pledging selection piece of criteria, where prior to 22 you could only add one. All right, and then there's a little edit here where if you need to change what you did, you just click that little edit and go in and make your changes and add it. So really neat function, I think. That is available in all the reporting. If I go to birthday, pops me right up. Now, when you go to any of these canned reports, as I call them, birthday, anniversary, group skills, that will automatically bring up the birthday screen, the edit people selection with the birth date on it or the anniversary, or it will bring up your group skills and you continue choosing what you need. Again, if I don't need to add any giving or pledging criteria, I can just ignore that and click next. I forgot to, oh, it adds that for me. I forgot because I didn't choose any. It adds it for me. And that takes me to step 2, select the report layout. Now this is pretty much the same, not much has changed here, but there are a few neat new options here. We have a tab along the top called Giving, Pledging, Date Range, and this tells you right here, this is the date range for which you'd like to see giving and pledging on the report. You could choose a different giving and pledging date range back on the prior screen that you want those people to meet that criteria of. But then if you're putting pledge or giving amounts on the actual report, you could ask for a different year of totals than what you asked for in the criteria for the people. So this allows you to put giving, pledging amounts from whichever date range you ask for on a report when you're asking for giving and pledging. Probably wouldn't do that with a birth date list. But that tab is still available on all your Step 2 reports. Another neat thing here is the unlisted options. You have a tab now where you can choose to print the phone numbers, emails, or addresses of people where you've marked them unlisted on their records with an asterisk if I check the box, or if I wanted to print but with no asterisk, I could uncheck this, or I can say don't print the phone, email, or address. So you do have the option for those unlisted, because typically on reports those will show with an asterisk. That's how it always worked in the older modules, but they wouldn't print on directories. Now you have some choices there of whether it prints with the asterisk or whether you print that or not. All right, and I'm going to talk about donation in just a minute, Beth, so give me a second here and I'll answer. I just noticed your question there, so Rachel, if you want to hold off, I'm going to show that here in a minute. All right. Now, the reporting function I was showing you, that also applies to labels. Any of the screens where you had that step 1, select who is going to appear on the report, select who should have labels printed. It's going to bring you that step 1 where if all you did was enter criteria, you just click this button, enter your criteria like you normally did, and hit next. So it's still the same thing. It's still pretty easy. It's not really too complicated. It's just you can do multiple giving pledging criteria, which you couldn't do before. And a lot of churches want to see that so they compare on their report who, gave this year and maybe didn't give last year, or pledged last year and didn't pledge this year, and so on. That function is also available in email. So any of those reporting functions, now the canned attendance reports, those go straight to the regular screens. But in those reports where you could select criteria from the records, those reports are going to open up to that first screen now where you can put people criteria and multiple lines of giving, pledging criteria if you like. All right, let me look at my notes here. All right, that's all I wanted to show you in membership. There may be other things that I'm forgetting about, but those were the ones that really, really struck me. All right, so let's look at donations. Beth was asking if that multiple selections was available in donations as well. Yes, if we go to reports export, now it's not available in the regular like log report, some of these reports where you had a filter screen where you really weren't putting any information for givers. You don't have those. But things like labels, let me jump over here to list and labels. If I go to labels, labels used to give you a screen where you could put criteria for people. So in labels, you have that same option where you can put people selection criteria and or giving, pledging criteria. and also in the donation statement as well. So again, this is the same. You just go to your edit people selection if that's all you did before. Well, you probably used this more, the giving pledging criteria screen. So those are available in the donations module. Just thinking, are they on? I'm pretty sure those are the only two. Yeah, it's not on the pledge giving analysis. Maybe they'll add it to that one because that does have the givers tab. All right, another really neat thing. I think a lot of people are going to love this. If you have duplicate records you're cleaning up and moving money around, you might want to hold off until version 22 comes out, because anything prior to version 22, if you have duplicate givers, and in donations you go to givers and transfer donations, so you could move the money from one duplicate to the duplicate you want to keep, that created a reversal on the extra record. It's part of your audit trail to prevent fraud. But that reversal still counts as a transaction, so that would prevent you from getting rid of that extra duplicate record. Neat new feature here. If we say we have a person here, pick Donna. If we go to Donna, and maybe we want to move Donna's money to, actually let me find Nina, because Nina has, I'm going to go all the way back to 2000. I'm not sure how much giving she has. So we'll choose a date range as far back as possible to get all of her giving. Maybe her giving was supposed to go on Carolyn Jane Ames. I grabbed the wrong person. So if these were actually duplicates, we can check this little box here saying these two givers are the same person, duplicate records. Actually, you know what I'm going to do real quick? I forgot to do this before I started. I apologize. Let me real quick just make a donation individual giver. We'll call her Nina Abenshine. Whoops. Tabbing too fast. So add her, finished. All right. So now if I go to givers and transfer, and I find Nina, I want to go as far back as she might have giving. Apply dates. Now I can find the duplicate I want to move that to. Now in reality, I'd probably want to keep the visitor record. Usually it's the donation record that was made by accident and people want to move it over to the more permanent record that has more information and membership. But if these are duplicates, then I can check this box indicating these two givers are the same person. And it tells me when transferring between duplicate records, all donations in the date range will be transferred. So I'm going to go ahead and hit transfer. And it's asking, are you sure these are the same person and that you want to transfer the selected giving? So I can say yes. Tells me the giver was changed on selected donations. Now, normally if that box is not checked, it tells me it reverses them and moves them over to the other person, and here's the new transaction numbers. All this function does is change the giver. So it's not reversing, it's just correcting the giver to this other giver. Now if I click OK, we can see it's moved over. And now I'm not sure if Nina has a pledge, because again, I apologize. I meant to make a duplicate and forgot before I started today. But let's go find Nina real quick. And if she doesn't have a pledge, it should let me delete her. But let's see. So we'll go to Nina. Oh, she's the first one. So if I hit delete family, oh, she has a pledge. So I'd have to remove her pledge. Let's go do it real quick. I think there's only one more thing I want to show you. So let me do this. Go to pledges. Oh, she could have multiple pledges. So we'd have to find all her pledges. Hopefully it would just be today. Oops, where'd she go? All right, well, she must not have a pledge here. I'm not going to take all, we only have about a minute left, so I'm not going to go through everything to find her pledge. But believe me, if, actually, you know what we could do? Let's move the money back to the one I just made. Well, I can show you how I can delete that one. So if I go to giver, transfer donations, Let's move it back to the real record we want to keep. So we'll go to the donation record that I really don't want all that posted to. As far back as possible and apply dates. And now let's find that visitor record that I really want to keep. And we'll check that these two are the same person and transfer that over. Now, if you've had duplicates, you know that normally when I move that over, it tells me it's reversing it and reiterates that person, and it creates reverse transactions, and you can't delete that extra one. But here we're moving that over to the visitor record. And now I should be able to go into Manage Givers. And there's Nina right there. Click on her name. Oops, click on the donation one. And here I should be able to click Delete. And it says, are you sure you want to delete? I can say yes, and there my duplicate record is gone. I don't have those reverse transactions anymore. Really important though, you only want to check that box if they're truly duplicates. Having an audit trail is really important, so if something goes wrong, you have those reversals to show what really occurred. All right, it is 12:20, but I do want to show you one more thing. In donations, you now have a function, if we go to special functions, where you can delete historical years. So this looks at calendar years, January to December only. So if you have your starting month for donation set to something only other than January and reports don't run on a calendar year, this does report only years, makes sense, tax purposes, for January through December. And at least the 5 most recent years of data will always be kept. So you can't delete anything farther back than 5 years. But if you have lots of data, you want to get rid of some of that, you can now delete some of your years of data in donations. There is no actual year or opening the year, but you have the ability to come in here, find the years you need. Now we do recommend making a backup because this does permanently delete the donations, pledges, giver numbers with end dates, not start dates, but end dates within those years. The only way you could get your data back is by restoring a backup. So if I say delete selected years, it tells me it's going to delete all of that I just mentioned. I say yes. Now I would have no data for 2008. Obviously 2009 we didn't have anything in there, or it show that as well, or 2010. So if I were to go look and browse for those years, I would have nothing there. All right. I'm going to go ahead and end my presentation for today's webinar. That's all I wanted to show you.